the center of a gathering storm as women and men argue the question of abortion, the right to life or the woman's right to choose. It's a highly charged issue and a political one as well. In the last 10 days, the President of the United States has rejected recommendations made by his own appointed Commission on Population Growth that urged liberalized abortion laws. And then the President injected himself into the controversy with a letter to Cardinal Cook, head of the Catholic Archdiocese of New York, supporting the Church's fight against liberal abortion laws.
It was in 1973 that the Supreme Court confirmed the legality of a woman's right to have an abortion under the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which protects the right to privacy. Through political means and rallies, both pro-life and pro-choice supporters have been making their voices heard ever since.
We are trying to protect babies in any way that we can through legislation now.
We're for legal abortion, safe abortion. We're for the woman making her own mind.
Pro-lifers hope their cause will be advanced by the conservative Trump administration. That includes the President's Supreme Court appointee, Neil Gorsuch, who believes the Constitution does not protect the right to abortion. Another way to abolish abortion is through state laws, says Carol Tobias, president of the National Right to Life Committee.
We want to see abortion not occurring in every state. So if you have a state legislature and a governor who is working with our state affiliates to pass laws to protect the babies, to protect the moms, I think that's great.
But making abortion illegal does not protect people, says Eleanor Smeal, head of the Feminist Majority Foundation.
When you are forcing people against their will to reproduce at times that are very difficult for them, you are actually having a negative impact on their health and well-being and the health and well-being of their family.
Tobias says moves by the Republican-led administration show efforts are going forward to abolish abortion. President Trump's global gag rule, for example, prevents U.S. funding from going to any overseas organizations that promote or perform abortion. Tobias is also hopeful that pro-life legislation put forward in the U.S. House of Representatives may eventually be approved by the Senate.
We are very happy that they've already in this session passed the No Taxpayer Funding for Abortion Act.
But Smeal thinks those efforts are out of step with most American public opinion on abortion.
All they're doing is making it tougher on people. Making it, and they're not going to, whether it's legal or illegal, it's going to occur.
But the fight continues across the country. Both sides press their propaganda war with rallies and marches, slogans and posters.
I am incredibly excited. I believe that this is a first for a president to show any kind of acknowledgement of the march. I'm very, very well pleased with that, and I'm grateful for his support.
I just want to say that for women who are scared like I was and not knowing if they want to make that decision, they're scared, they have family members pressuring them to abort, I was there too. Adoption is a beautiful option, and I just want people to know that.
Hot coffee. Hot coffee. Hot coffee.
I feel that the government has to get out of it. Planned Parenthood shouldn't be funded by government funds. And I think the thing that's so farcical is that if a pregnant woman got stabbed and she was killed and the baby was killed, there'd be a double murder. But these people can kill babies in the womb.
We're out here today because it's really appalling that so many people want to control the bodies of women. It's my choice whether I choose to have a child or not, and it's my choice what I choose to do with my body.
I'm here because whether or not a woman wants to have an abortion is her own personal choice, and it's a matter of health care. It's a choice between her and her doctor.
Huge crowds rallied peacefully in the nation's capital Friday for the 45th annual March for Life. Among them was the leader of 40 Days for Life, the anti-abortion campaign which began in Bryan, Texas.
Men and women around the world right now are defending our freedoms and our rights to go out and assemble publicly, and 40 Days for Life has been a great demonstration of that.
Sean Carney says it all started with prayer vigils outside the local Planned Parenthood center. He believes the group's prayers were answered when the facility shut down and 40 Days for Life took over.
And is now our headquarters for 40 Days for Life, and is operated by 2 former abortion doctors.
Every January, 40 Days for Life joins pro-life activists from all over the country in our nation's capital in peaceful protest against Roe v. Wade, the landmark Supreme Court ruling that legalized abortion nationwide.
Those at the March for Life say they want to see leaders take more action to end abortion. But while they're here, they're also hoping to change hearts and minds.
The March for Life this year drew top Republican leaders, including Speaker of the House Paul Ryan, and a live video message from President Donald Trump. Carney says this administration has boosted the pro-life movement.
The March for Life is a movement born out of love. You love your families, you love your neighbors, you love our nation, and you love every child, born and unborn, because you believe that every life is sacred, that every child is a precious gift from God. In the United States, it's one of only 7 countries to allow elective late-term abortions, along with China, North Korea, and others. Under my administration, we will always defend the very first right in the Declaration of Independence, and that is the right to life.
Kentucky has become ground zero for the abortion debate. Its sole remaining abortion clinic is under threat, and the state could become the first in the nation without an abortion provider. Hundreds of protesters from a national anti-abortion group are gathering there this week. They are making the state and that clinic their target. Anna Werner's in Louisville, where she's been talking to the clinic's director and those who want to shut it down. Anna, good morning.
Good morning, Gail. And what you're looking at here, this black and yellow tape on the sidewalk, this is a buffer zone. It was put into place by a federal judge late last week because back in May, protesters actually blocked patients' access into this abortion clinic. Now what the protesters have been doing is lining up right along the edge, talking to patients as they go in. Their goal is to shut this clinic down.
Abortion opponents started gathering at churches in Louisville over the weekend, gearing up for citywide protests. Evangelical activist Jason Storms and wife Sarah brought their 8 children with them from Milwaukee, along with a firm belief.
We have the wholesale, legalized, protected, tax-subsidized killing of little human beings in the womb. Is, to me, just is deplorable.
The group he belongs to, Operation Save America, calls Roe v. Wade a covenant with death and wants to close down the clinic, the last remaining abortion provider in the state.
This is exactly why this matters.
Kentucky's abortion landscape is changing. Republican Governor Matt Bevin publicly opposes abortion, and the GOP-controlled legislature has passed new restrictions on abortion. In May, nearly a dozen protesters were arrested for blocking patients' access to the clinic. Storm says they plan to be peaceful this time.
Well, there's certainly not going to be any violence on anybody on our side.
One of their activists told me that they don't espouse violence. Do you believe that?
No. Anna Hola has been the clinic's director for 17 years.
How do you feel about being a target?
It's offensive because these people outside believe that they have monopoly over God. And they don't understand that he is in here too. God is everywhere. You know, those people outside aren't the only Christians in the world.
Abortion rights were the focus today in the Missouri Supreme Court. A woman says her rights were violated when she was required by law to wait 3 days to have an abortion. And a religious organization is supporting her. That organization is called the Satanic Temple. Caroline Sweeney has new details.
After judges here at the Missouri Court of Appeals said a woman's religious rights were violated while she was trying to get an abortion, they said her case needed to be heard by the Missouri Supreme Court. Abortion is a divisive issue across the country, and for one woman in Missouri, her fight to have an abortion and not have her religious rights trampled on has made its way to the state's highest court.
Part of our beliefs as Satanists is that our body is inviolable, subject to our own will alone.
The woman in the lawsuit, only listed as Mary Doe, was told she had to wait 72 hours after her first appointment, view an ultrasound, and was given paperwork that said life starts at conception.
Mary presented an exemption form to the clinic so that she did not have to kind of be forced to comply with these religious beliefs mandated by the states.
Blackmore says the clinic would not accept the form. Mary Doe is suing Missouri Governor Eric Greitens, Attorney General Josh Hawley, and other parts of the Missouri state government. In a 30-minute oral argument to the state Supreme Court in this room today, Blackmore says their attorney made an airtight argument.
Mainstream Christian and Catholic organizations oppose what we're doing.
So we asked one anti-abortion group in Kansas City to respond. The KC Coalition for Life said, quote, "If the material is against a woman's religious beliefs, she can simply toss it aside and make her decision. No one is forcing her to make a decision that she doesn't want to make." The group also said the 72-hour waiting period in Missouri is a safety measure.
Current Missouri law requires a 72-hour waiting period before a woman can have an abortion procedure. It also requires a woman be given an informational booklet on abortion, which she must sign. There must also be an opportunity for her to see the ultrasound and hear the fetal heartbeat. The Satanic Temple is suing the state, claiming those requirements violate the woman's religious beliefs and the Establishment Clause of the U.S. Constitution. The state disagrees, particularly on the idea that a woman must view the ultrasound, saying she can refuse to see it, but must be offered an opportunity. But the plaintiff's attorney says that's not how Planned Parenthood has been counseled to adhere to the law.
And the fundamental issue here is, what business does the state of Missouri have telling anybody when human life comes into existence?
When I was 14, I found out the truth about my life. That's when my survival came to light. When I first found out, I was devastated. And that night I struggled with anger for the first time. I was born in August of 1977 in Sioux City, Iowa. And what I know about my birth is that I wasn't intended to be born alive. My mother, who was a college student at the time, was 19. She wasn't married to my father. She was almost 8 months pregnant with me, from what we can gather. She went into the hospital and had a saline infusion for an abortion done. The saline infusion abortion involves injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding that preborn baby in the womb. And the intent of that salt solution is to actually scald the child to death from the outside in. I soaked in that toxic salt solution for 5 days. My mother went back to the hospital, had her premature labor induced with me, and that was the day my mother was meant to give birth to a dead child. The medical professionals initially believed that the abortion had succeeded in ending my life. The joy for me is realizing that that day when I was left for dead in the hospital, a nurse heard me. That nurse and that team of professionals understood that my life was worth trying to save. After I survived that failed abortion, my biological parents made an adoption plan for me. And I'm really blessed because my adoptive parents met me while I was still being cared for in the neonatal intensive care unit. And my parents tell the story of how the first time they laid eyes on me lying in the incubator, they fell in love with me. And, you know, I always joke, I know I wasn't a pretty baby. I know that about myself. But my parents saw the inherent beauty that existed in me. I want everybody to see that. If we look behind words, if we look behind numbers, this is what abortion looks like. This is what tens of millions of other children would look like in one way, shape, or form, if only they were given the opportunity to live.